Quick cuts to Max, just like catatonic. Good morning, Minneapolis. Thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate you. I'm Toussaint Morrison, your host of Good Morning Minneapolis, brought to you by Onsite Public Media. And today we're in my kitchen, which brings me to, hey, you can donate to Onsite Public Media at onsitepublicmedia.com/donate, and we can get about this kitchen at any point in time with your support. So yeah, why don't you just hop on down to the link below or the link in the bio and do that. We appreciate you. Let's go. Today in obvious news, public schools wrapped up their school year, and in one second grade class, students were asked to draw a picture of what they'd like to see change for next school year. And here, this second grader drew a picture of what they titled Officer Squiggly Piggles. There it is, right there. It looks like that second grader clearly has an early onset vendetta with the school's liaison officer. Wow. Lots of detail, wouldn't you say, Max? That's a very detailed drawing. Oh, it says the word no. Yeah, well, I mean, we look forward to the saga continuing for Officer Squiggly Piggles. Who hired him? Brian O'Hara? I don't know. Geez. Yeah. I wonder where Squiggly Piggles is from. You think Busy Town? I don't know, Sesame Street. Sesame Street's probably too peaceful for him, too diverse for Squiggly Piggles. Whew. You know, that second grader is a really talented artist. Anywho, in our headlines today, the DOJ made a visit to Minneapolis, wrapping up their investigation into the Minneapolis Police Department. Merrick Garland rocked the mic with this.
The Department of Justice has concluded that there is reasonable cause to believe that the Minneapolis Police Department and the City of Minneapolis engaged in a pattern or practice of conduct that violates the First and Fourth Amendments of the United States Constitution.
This is biblical. Merrick Garland and the gang, Vanita Gupta and Kristen Clark, laid it out thick as frozen goulash last Friday and parsed no words. We figured you may not have the time to read the 92-page report or watch the hour of press conference the DOJ put out, so we broke this down for you. Here are the 4 main points the DOJ cited wrong with the Minneapolis Police Department. Number 1.
First, we found that the Minneapolis Police Department uses excessive force, both deadly and less lethal.
Derek Chauvin clearly used unreasonable, excessive, deadly force on George Floyd, but why did he feel he could do that? Because he works in a place that promotes that type of behavior, gives the pass to that type of behavior, celebrates that type of behavior? Hey, the DOJ would say, our review of the data depicted above showed that roughly 3/4 of MPD's reported uses of force did not involve an associated violent offense or a weapons offense. So you're telling me it's not just Derek Chauvin, it's like most of the department wants to hurt people. You know that ex-sports ball player friend of yours that was never really concerned with winning the game, but took pride in the penalties and physical injury they could dole out? A sociopath, if you will. That is the model mindset of the MPD. The DOJ writes, MPD sergeant pulled over an unarmed black woman for an illegal U-turn. The woman approached the squad car distraught and yelling. The sergeant told her 3 times to go back to her car, but an apparent language barrier impeded the communication. The sergeant then pulled a taser and reversed the initial command from seconds earlier, telling the woman twice to get over here. Without warning, the sergeant fired taser probes into the woman's chest and jolted her for 5 seconds. The sergeant then pushed the woman to the ground and fired the taser again without warning, this time into the woman's neck for 7 seconds as the woman cried, "Don't kill me, don't kill me." The woman was not an immediate threat, and the sergeant's use of force was unreasonable. The force left the woman bleeding and shaking, and she spent time in jail for an obstruction charge. Meanwhile, MPD towed her car to an impound lot that sold it. The Office of Police Conduct Review dismissed her complaint because it did not appear to involve MPD officers. That's wild. Dismissed because it wasn't an officer? That means there's a bigger problem. Police issued tasers in the hands of non-officers? Question mark? This is also disturbing as Imagine an officer telling you to go back to your car, then come here, and then tases the out of you, and then has his friends steal your car, and then gives it to their friends, and then they sell it. Literal definition of carjacking. And we're just picking stories from the stack. There's over 90 pages of this. Anywho, on to the second point.
Our second finding is that the Minneapolis Police Department unlawfully discriminates against black people in its enforcement activities. This is a first-time finding for us.
Essentially, Kristen is stating the MPD is without a doubt a pack of racists who self-justify their use of force. The DOJ found that MPD officers pull over black people 6.5 times more than white people and indigenous people 7.5 times more than white people when there is little to no crime committed. MPD also searches black people 12.8 times more than white people and indigenous people 19.7 times more than white people. How is it that MPD was able to do this for so long? You'd almost have to not talk about this or keep it a secret, right? Next on the Adenium Broadcasting Center's Masterpiece Theater, The Linden Hills have eyes. No, Mother. I'm going to go north of 42nd Street, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. I'm not going to remain in this bubble between Lyndhurst and Kenwood for the rest of my life. It's almost like a reverse Little Mermaid. I digress. 92 pages, this whole file. At the end of any video game, they give you your lifetime stats, and here's what the DOJ found for the Minneapolis Police Department over their past 7 years. You may not be able to read this in words, so I'll decipher. Compared to white people behaving similarly, black people stopped by MPD are subjected to 22% more searches, 37% more vehicle searches, and 24% more uses of force. Meanwhile, indigenous people were subjected to 23% more searches and 20% more uses of force. We'd like to share some quotes from the MPD that the DOJ was so kind to record. Quote, one officer told us that MPD officers make degrading comments to black detainees about their intelligence or their family by invoking racially charged stereotypes with statements like, we'll get you Popeyes in a minute. When an officer in plain clothes held a black teen at gunpoint for allegedly stealing a $5 burrito, the officer responded on camera, quote, really, how many white people in the city of Minneapolis have you run up against with the gun? And lastly, a lieutenant was caught on camera expressing racist assumptions about black people saying, quote, I'd like to scatter them, but it's time to and put people in jail and just prove the mayor wrong about his white supremacists from out of state. Although this group probably is predominantly white because there's not looting and fires. Well, clearly he didn't see this coming. Finding number 3 from the DOJ.
We also found that the MPD violates people's First Amendment rights by retaliating with force against people engaged in protest and engaged in demonstrations. We saw officers push and pepper spray protesters who posed no threat.
Hey, you don't sustain racism and many other unconstitutional practices by not talking about them at the dinner table. According to the MPD, sometimes you gotta pepper spray that press member or use excessive force on that protester and turn off that body cam. Yes, you've heard democracy dies in darkness, but also...
The officer forcefully pushed the journalist's head to the pavement, and when the journalist held up his press credential again, an MPD sergeant pepper sprayed him in the face and walked away.
Finding number 4 from the DOJ.
The MPD and the city of Minneapolis discriminated against people with behavioral health disabilities when responding to calls for assistance.
Now, the DOJ didn't give many examples in the press conference, but laid it out flatly in the document that the MPD is incapable of caring for, handling, or de-escalating a person experiencing a mental health crisis. If this statement from the DOJ documented from an actual MPD officer during a ride-along doesn't display that for you, then you might be working for the MPD and not even know it. The DOJ quoted the officer saying, if we don't deal with the crazy naked guy, who will? It's not the old days, can't lasso him. Best way to deal with them is to put them on the ground and handcuff them. And police are the only ones who are justified in doing that. I don't know any better way. The old days, you say. Lassoing, you say. Gosh, I wonder how old he's talking about. I mean, is he thinking peace treaties or when the cops started out as? What did they start out as again? Oh. And things got a little spicy at the presser when a reporter asked if it's sound policy to have 2 separate monitors in the MDHR and the DOJ. You see, the MPD and the city of Minneapolis are under 2 different investigations, and boy, Mayor Fry answered,
is it sound policy to have 2 different independent monitors that may or may not agree whether compliance has been met or not? No, it is not.
So Jacob is saying he wants to work with the DOJ and the state to get to an individual outcome, and then unprompted, U.S. Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark chimed in to say,
very briefly, I want to observe that the United States findings include real and unique concerns under the First Amendment and the Americans with Disabilities Act. These issues sweep beyond the scope of the MDHR report and are issues of federal and constitutional concern that we'll endeavor to resolve through our consent decree.
Let me interpret. You mean one outcome, Jack? We federal. You got your investigated for one thing, but we found a whole lot more, you dig? Don't order 2 medium fries and tell me to dump them in a large container. Nah. Sometimes you around and you find out more than once, Jacob. Essentially, Jacob Fry is asking, small fry and a large fry, could you just put those 2 in a medium fry cup, please? Okay, and I'd like them to go as well, yes. The MDHR was investigating an inflatable kiddie pool of racism. However, when the feds came in, they found an Olympic pool of federal violations, and Fry is just looking for the above-ground spa with jets. And it is safe, oh so very safe to say that Jacob Fry, the mayor of Minneapolis, doesn't get it. Look at Merrick Garland's face while Jacob is talking about one individual being the monitor. See that grin? That's a grin that says, Kristen's definitely got this one. And a smooth 24 hours after getting embarrassed on live national television at the DOJ press conference, you could find Jacob Fry in the streets seemingly wanting the embarrassment to not stop. Oh, you just can't teach non-rhythm like that. You really can't. Well, that'll do it for us here at Onsite Public Media. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to support more programming like this, go to the description in the box below or go to the link in the bio. We appreciate y'all so much. Hey, justice, then peace.